Hey people, as some of you might know that recently the movie, the cult classic movie, I can call it that, Dil Chahta Hai completed 20 years of its release, and since we've been revisiting some of the movies we have liked over the years, we thought why not go with Dil Chahta Hai this time? And yeah, here we are. Let me formally introduce you the guy who owns the channel, Karthik. He recently uploaded a really fine poem. I would highly recommend you if you're watching this. First, go and check out that poem. I really loved it. And then there is Sai, whom I am absolutely certain who hasn't like checked out that poem yet. I would say would start with Sai this time first. Sai, when was the first time you watched Dil Chahta Hai? Any memories? How was it?
So I think the first time I saw it was probably on TV,
Mm-hmm,
and it was, I would say, around something like 2006, 2007, I guess. So
mm-hmm,
pretty much like, and
Much
it
late.
didn't have like that big of a Chennai release, if I remember correctly. It came in pockets and it went off.
mm-hmm,
But I mean, yeah, like I said, the first time I saw it, I knew that this was like I could see that it was a very different film because by then my reference for love stories were mostly like, or coming of age were mostly like movies like Mohabbatein or Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge or
Yeah,
Kuch Kuch Hota Hai or even Kalo Na Ho, which came a little later. I
yeah,
would say,
yeah,
I mean, you can, if you see Kalo Na Ho and Dil Chahta Hai, you will still feel a little more of Bollywoodian
mm,
dramatization in Kalona, which
yeah,
is kind of non-existent in Dil Chahta Hai, though Dil Chahta Hai has its fair share of Bollywoodisms, but it also
mm,
tweaks them in like
yeah,
yeah.
very clever ways, and that's
yeah,
what like really stuck with me because it seemed like Farhan Akhtar, who was then pretty much like a newbie,
right,
he was able to take these very familiar tropes and he was able to like subvert them in like
yeah.
very
Pull
interesting
it off
ways.
so beautifully, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful.
But just one question. You called it a love story. Do you think you'll call it like a love story at the crux, at the core of the movie?
I see it. Yeah, for me, the movie holds as three different kinds of love stories.
Oh, okay.
Makes
Like
sense.
Uh,
I'll forward that question to you, Karthik. Like first of all, where did you watch the movie? What was your experience like? And then I would like you to add on this point as well. Like
Uh,
how do you see the core?
so the first time I watched the movie was again on TV, but like the
Mhm.
local cable TV.
Yeah, exactly.
But it
Yeah.
was just like a month after the release or something,
Mm-hmm.
right? So and since like unlike him, for me in Mumbai, we used to get all the ads and this and promos and all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and the music was already a big hit. So there was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of buzz around it and stuff, and it was like anybody. It was an event, right? It was more like an event. Something had happened. Oh, have you seen Dil Chahta Hai? Have you seen Dil Chahta Hai?
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, it was like families
Mm,
and everybody was watching that because
mm,
first of all, back in the day, people still watched it for actors. Like some people
mm,
still do, but they were like, "Arey Amir Khan ne kuch alag kiya." It
mm.
was still that. But when you got into it, you felt like, "Oh, I've never seen this." Right? I mean, nothing of this sort I've ever seen. And what was the next thing?
Yeah, like what do you consider the core of the movie to be? Like, is it love story?
Yeah, I mean, that occupies a lot of the film, but for me,
Mm,
the
mm.
core of the film is the three characters:
Friendship. Yeah,
friendship and more
yeah,
character development and friendship, of course.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I pretty much like you, Rama. I watched the movie on the local cable TV itself, and I remember it was like at 10:30 the movie started, and I could only watch it for like 15-20 minutes, and then I slept because I couldn't take it for longer. And for the first 15-20 minutes were like so good. I remember the moment where I slept. It was like I was watching that scene where Akash proposes Shalini Preeti Zinta
that
in that
disco. Yeah,
disco thing. I was jumping off my chair, dude, because it was so situationally funny. it was such a refreshing change of comedy back then what we were used to watch like in those days, like typically Govinda stuff. I don't look down upon that, but this was completely different than what we were used to in terms of comedy. And so I really that was like really hilarious for me. And then I couldn't watch the movie. Like I said, I slept. And I didn't have a computer back then, and like CD players and everything was not that prevalent. It was 2001, so they were hardly there. I think those times we were still relying on VHS and stuff like that, which I didn't have an access to either. So I had to wait for like I would literally check every single day on cable, are they showing Dil Chahta Hai? Because so badly wanted to see that movie. And ultimately, enters my friend Jayesh Yogi. I would like to take his name. He bought a CD player, and the first CD he bought was Dil Chahta Hai. And since then, we might have watched like that movie at least 20-25 times at his place. I like not showing off, but I there are parts of the movie which I have like still to this day by heart. And oh, I forgot to add that for me, Dil Chahta Hai is the best movie made in Bollywood. At least where I come from. I just see it to be like that entertaining and that perfectly made film. Also, one more thing, Rama, that you talked about, that Dil Chahta Hai was a thing in Mumbai, right?
Yeah,
And that's the exactly same, exactly opposite effect I felt in Indore, where in those days in Indore, I don't think there was even a single multiplex. Those were the days of those single screen theaters, and Dil Chahta Hai was at heart a very urban movie,
right.
so not made for a tier 2 city. So I don't even know when Dil Chahta came and went out of theaters. And like it was a very mild response in places like 2 tier cities like Indore. And I think that's one thing that makes a movie like a cult movie, which is not realized during its times. And then later we see that with some people consider it Andaz Apna Apna in that territory. Certainly Gangs of Wasseypur, which were not received that good in the theaters. But later the craze went on building, and like Torrent played in some
Yeah,
cases
big,
Torrent
big
played
role.
a immense role in that. Yeah. About like also about the love versus friendship part. In my belief, it is to be like one of the finest movies made about the emotion of friendship per se. So we have seen movies where friendship is a subset of the entire plot, but here we see like friendship being the plot itself. That's where the characters are branching out. That's where their individual stories are shaping up. Like for example, let's take Sholay. Sholay had a very integral emotion of friendship in the movie, but it there was much more to it than just friendship. Here friendship took a lot heavy lifting kind of a role, and things branched out of it. Like
Hmm.
what do you think, Sai?
To me, I feel like something like Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara. If you see the core, I feel that explored the friendship. So I see these two movies somewhat as companion pieces, actually.
Yeah, they
So
yeah.
both are coming of age,
Mm,
and you have certain fears. You have a character that is afraid of
mm,
something, blah blah blah. But the thing is, I feel this one explored the love part more, and
mm.
Zindagi went to explore the friendship
Yeah,
part more.
yeah.
Is what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a fair observation. I agree to that. How
Yeah,
about you, Karthik?
yeah. So yeah, I agree. But two things. To the first thing, what Saurabh said. One more thing to that is that before Dil Chahta Hai, if you ever see any friendship in any film, right, it is very serious. Like I'll give my life for you and all
Mm,
this. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's a scene right at the beginning when you were mentioning the proposal
Mm,
scene. Before
mm,
that, I had never seen. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I had never seen, except for that small part in Sholay, somebody like pranking his friend. In the morning, they
mm, mm,
go to Saif Ali Khan's place, and
mm,
then they're
mm,
pranking him, making fun of him,
mm,
and
mm,
all
mm.
that. So yeah, and by the way, since we are on the topic, like Sai said, these two films are like companion pieces, ZRMD and Dil Chahta Hai. On the 20th anniversary, they announced another film,
Yeah,
another
yeah,
road
yeah,
trip film with
yeah, yeah.
an all-female cast.
Yeah.
Oh,
Directed
Alia
okay.
to
Bhatt, Katrina Kaif, and Priyanka Chopra.
Priyanka
Yeah.
Chopra, and Farhan Akhtar is directing. So
Gile Zara or something is the name. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so
Oh,
even they think of it as like
Yeah.
companion pieces.
Yeah.
so one thing I should mention though, since you guys were talking about the popularity of the movie, right? There was so for the movie, I think there was this concept of this multiplex thing, but
Mm.
the songs were chartbusters, man. I mean, they were
Yeah.
ringing like,
Absolutely.
especially this title track was. It was used in that time. You go to any party or anything of that sort. This
Yeah.
song was like by
Yeah,
default there.
yeah.
Mm.
And there's another interview that they did recently, Farhan Akhtar and Shankar Ehsaan Loy, where they discuss the entire making of the music.
Right.
So yeah,
I
if
heard
any,
that one. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So if any of you
Yeah.
watching want to check that out, feel free.
Yeah. We'll come to the music later, but it's a very fascinating thing to know. Like I was surprised to know this that the movie actually came out of the diary or like Farhan Akhtar's diary. So many incidents that you see, that proposal scene where he goes on and proposes Preeti Zinta in the end in her own wedding, right? It actually did happen with some of one of his couple friends. Like he was friends with both boy and the girl. So many of the things that he took in that movie now were like out of his own diary or things that he has seen around him. In fact, they even say that Farhan Akhtar was in a phase in his life where the character of Siddharth resembles him the most, like Akshay Khanna's. So, as a matter of fact, it was surprising for me to know about this as well. That actually the movie came out of like personal experiences around Farhan Akhtar.
Okay.
So the in the movie, the story about Akash, which is Amir Khan, that sort of a thing happened with two of his friends. His friend actually went to someone else's wedding, ended up proposing the girl and got her. So
Okay.
yeah, like on a surface level, it's very reasonable to think that how filmy was this. But on the other hand, then if you have to believe Farhan Akhtar, it did happen to someone around him. And also, like I give full marks to Farhan Akhtar about this. That how keenly was he observing things around him? That like he was in that movie making mindset that I can use this in my movie someday.
Right.
A very very like what do you think, like Rama?
So yeah, that is absolutely true because all of his thing, everything that he put in the movie, most of it was autobiographical, and I think many
Mm,
first-time directors tend to do that. So as
mm,
Salim Khan would say, "कि कच्चा माल जिंदगी से लेके आते हैं." So they would put
mm.
everything over there. There's one interesting thing about the guy who plays Sonali Kulkarni's fiance. The guy who gives
Subodh.
her Subodh, the guy who gives her
Mm,
one balloon, he is the
mm.
Akash character in real life. He is Farhan
Oh,
Akhtar's friend, and Akash's character was based on him. And then he decided,
oh.
and he was asking him, put me in the movie somehow and do something. So he made him play that character.
Wow, that's new
Yeah,
information, man.
yeah. He said it in
Yes,
one of the interviews, I think. So yeah, whole
Sai.
of the film was
Yeah,
most of the story, the relationships, everything was pretty much autobiographical. Yeah.
yeah. Sai, do you have any specific observations or pointers about how the story went or like how it was cobbled up together?
So my this thing was I actually didn't. So the Amir Khan Preeti Zinta thing is like my least favorite in the film
I knew
because
it.
it's like that typical Bollywood thingy, and I really like the Akshay Khanna Dimple Kabadia. What kind of blossoms between them? You could
Mm,
call it
mm,
love, you could call it
mm,
respect
mm,
and mutual admiration or something of that sort. I
mm,
really like that. But it's kind of a bit surprising to see that this, I mean, uh, this is autobiographical because, yeah, the events are definitely like bit more melodrama, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm,
could be some
yeah. I
some
I
think
things
mean,
added to the
probably there
fiction.
were
Yeah.
sketches and probably
Mm,
like he
yeah, they
decided
fleshed
to.
it out in a Bollywood
mm,
way, maybe.
Yeah,
And
yeah, but
by the way,
mm,
so I would
yeah, go ahead.
like to answer your other question, Saurabh. On
Mm-hmm,
you were saying how he was able to remember and write it, right?
mm-hmm.
I don't think it probably worked that way. I think when he, like Rama said, when he started writing, yeah,
Yeah,
and he put a relationship. This is what he would have thought of because
Like I didn't
yeah.
get it. What is it?
No, instead of
he said
remembering
this.
and then using it in a film, like you said,
Yeah, yeah,
he's
yeah.
saying when he started writing, he said like, okay, let me put my friend's story and let me put
I
my
need
Yeah,
drama. What is the most
yeah,
dramatic
yeah,
relationship I'm
yeah.
aware of?
Yes.
So yeah, let's probably go there.
yeah.
So,
And
so like, yeah, we should be very careful if any one of us like decides to write a movie someday. There might be some stories coming out of anyone's life. Like, so nothing is private anymore, I would say.
Right.
Do you think they had to kill Dimple Kapadia for the closure of that Siddharth story?
I think it's more of a commercial compromise, man. I mean, probably like they didn't even have to show Amir and Preeti uniting after that whole drama, also. So I
No,
feel,
what I mean is like, so they show that okay, she dies, and that's why he has to choose something, like he has to move ahead in his life. Okay, if by that time a relationship between a formal relationship between them could not have worked, could it have been just like this, that she says no, it's not going to work, and she just leaves her own way and he carries on with his life? Could Do you think that could have been a way of taking his story forward?
yeah, but then they had too many scenes. They had that song with her and all that, right? If you don't
Right.
give something dramatic, then the audience won't be convinced that,
Yeah,
oh, she's just
And
leaving or.
also her death is like a moment where Akash and his friendship gets rekindled. So it's
absolutely,
a
man.
you
Yeah,
need
yeah,
him to
yeah,
be at a very
yeah,
low point
yeah, yeah,
so
For
that
them
he
to kind
can
of come
yeah,
back.
yeah. That's a very
come back and
yeah.
connect. So going from there, I just wanted to ask you guys this one thing: that do you think each of the arcs, each of the character arcs, right?
Mm,
Do
mm,
you think some like for me, one arc is definitely inferior to the other two. I guess you
mm.
guys know which one, but do you think all the arcs were really well fleshed out, like each of the three boys? What do you think?
I think I think that like still Dil Chahta Hai, if there is one minor fault in the movie is in terms of like there was far more screen time for Amir Khan than the other two, and it could be this usual superstar kind
Especially
of
towards the later half also,
Yeah,
later
right?
half. Yeah, even his love story had like too much screen time, which I obviously enjoyed and everything. That scene is magic, dude, where she takes him to opera, and like it could be in a sense very filmy, but like even therapists do that. So like it it has something to do with reality as well. Like she makes him close his eyes and asks him like, whom do you see now? So in those terms, yeah, I do feel that uh, there was a lot more screen time, and I feel I don't know which one you meant, Rama, but for me, I think the most prominent character arc was for Amir Khan's character only. Like
yeah,
he is this brash, insensitive guy to begin with, and then he swallows his ego, and in fact, should I say
right.
even some like develop some compassion towards his friend and like that sort of a thing.
Right. For me, yes. I before I tell you, let you go ahead. Like, what do you think of the other two guys? The
So
arcs.
I always felt like the Saif character, I didn't quite. It was a fairly generic. I liked that was Sonali Kulkarni, right?
Yeah,
Who,
yeah,
Mm,
yeah,
mm,
her character. I actually like all the three women characters in the movie.
mm,
So they're all like very nicely
very
fleshed out.
nicely written. Yeah,
Yeah,
mm.
and they all are like very different, and you wouldn't have seen such characters sort of written that way previously in
yeah,
Bollywood
yeah,
movies.
yeah. For me,
So,
also, it was the Saif Ali Khan character's arc, because if you see, Akshay Khanna doesn't really have an arc. I mean, he
Mhm,
does, like he faces something, but he doesn't
mhm,
really change. His character
mhm,
doesn't really change
mhm,
towards the end of the
mhm,
film because he's not that screwed up or weird, or has
He's
mm,
issues
by
to begin
nature
with.
very introverted,
Yeah,
right? So we
he's
know
mm,
only that much
we
about him,
know
I think.
what he is, and towards the end he just like lightens up a bit, but other than that he's the
mm,
same. The only
mm,
thing for me was Saif Ali Khan's character is at the beginning of the film a womanizer kind of, right?
mm,
Flirtatious and stuff. By the end,
mm,
he gets changed a bit. He's tamed a bit. But what
mm,
I realized was Saif Ali Khan throughout the film was used for only two things: either as
mm,
a comic relief, or
mm,
as a connection between the two. And I think the film did
mm,
that really well. That is why,
mm,
in spite of like what you guys said, they focused a lot on Amir Khan, but the payoff at the end when the friends meet, that works only because of those couple of scenes where
mm,
Saif Ali Khan and Akshay Khanna talk about Amir Khan. So
mm,
in between they
mm,
put those scenes like "Galti se isko
mm,
phone kar diya,"
mm,
that
mm,
scene, or they meet
mm,
up and they ask and तूने आकाश से
yeah,
बात किया and all that. Otherwise, if you see after the disagreement in the beginning, if you straight away cut to the point where they meet at the very end, the audience would be like, okay, that was a long time ago. So what are you? Are they still thinking about each other? Are they missing each other? All that is established somewhere through Saif's character. But other than that, Saif
yeah,
is
and
just
like
comic relief.
I thoda disagree with you, because like I don't think it was as simplistic as just like a comic relief per se. I think like forget about a movie, even take any three people who might be friends or in any friendship, there would be a guy who would be like the mediator kind of a person who would
Right,
like to,
right.
yeah, who would like to take from everyone, like okay, I'll do this for friendship, or I can take
Hmm.
the down roads, that kind of a guy.
Right.
And it is a very natural thing to happen in even in real life. Okay, but I want to talk to you guys for 5 minutes about this particular thing. I don't know, have we discussed this earlier or not, but do you think many good directors, in terms of, especially in terms of Bollywood, they like they give all their good work in their very first movie, and from there this feeling comes in where, okay, now I'm somewhat like an established person, and it's very hard to see someone upping their game from their very first movie. It happens very seldomly, at least the couple of examples I can think of. Do you believe in this theory? Like, for example, I think Farhan Akhtar, in terms of his directorial work, Dil Chahta Hai was clearly like a masterpiece, and later none of his movies even like remotely came close, like halfway through it.
But they
Laksha
were
was,
not on this genre also, right? In the sense that he made
uh,
Dawn, which was like
yeah,
a totally
very
different kind of.
forgettable, very forgettable. Like, so that's what I was. So do you think that this friendship, this road trip, this love story kind of genre works for him, and that's why he couldn't do anything better later on?
With all due respect to Farhan, I
Hmm.
feel like a lot of. I mean, even in Dil Chahta Hai, I see a lot of Zoya's presence
Okay.
actually.
Okay.
So I think
Could be
she's
that the
probably
siblings think
this.
alike.
So yeah, I have never thought of Farhan as someone like I somehow, because the reason is exactly what you said. So if you see the other movies that he has made,
Mm-hmm.
you never see him as someone like kind of writing some of the scenes that are here. Again, this is no
Hmm.
this no the credit is still his and we should respect that and all that, but
Hmm.
somehow I don't see him like, and which is why I'm kind of intrigued that he's going to make a movie like this with three women, because it'll
Yeah.
be interesting to
I
see.
doubt, will he be directing that one,
Yeah,
Karthik? Do you know? Oh,
he's.
his? Oh, okay, okay.
No,
Yeah.
my answer slightly differs from what I said, but yeah, in a way, what you're essentially saying, Saurabh, is that so more than a director, it's more that his sensibilities, spoke in Dil Chahta Hai. So
Yeah, that's a good way to.
maybe
Yeah.
like more than the craft of directing and making a good
Mm-hmm.
story, he just
Mm.
narrated you a story which he knows like in and out,
Yeah, yeah. He knows that
completely.
world.
He
He
knows
knows
that
that world.
world
Yeah, yeah,
to the
yeah,
last detail.
He-
So
yeah,
yeah, so then maybe that's why.
yeah.
And I guess that would be the same for all the other directors. Like I said, they get the raw material from life. So
Mm,
once,
mm,
quoting that same Salim Khan interview where he said, if you practice a skill like guitar or piano or something,
mm,
every time you play, you get better, right?
mm,
More
mm.
you play, better you get. But writing or creating or something like that, you take your experiences, put everything in one film. Now you're empty,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
now
yeah.
you have to fill it back again. So
You're
that is
constantly
where
using your
you,
memory bank. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
Just
maybe
out of curiosity, I want to ask you, whatever interview you were talking about, did he again gave that example that if anyone else would hold a gun and they'll be like,
ex-
chal jayegi? Did he?
exactly, yeah, yeah, yeah. The
Every single Salim Khan interview ever.
yeah, he gives this example for people who are watching that there's something called art of projection and art
Uh-huh.
of conception. So he says something like, I can conceive a role better than Amitabh Bachchan, but if I hold a gun, people would be like, what are you doing? You might, set it off accidentally. But when Amitabh Bachchan holds it, he means
Means
business.
business,
Yeah,
like, yeah.
and Saurabh and I have seen this example given so many times, like we can't stand it like anymore.
Like in every single interview of his. What do you guys think about just the acting part of it? Who stood out for you? And if there were any characters or any actors who couldn't do a convincing enough job, was there
I
something like open floor?
I
Yeah,
actually like Dimple Kabadi a lot in this movie
yeah, yeah.
because I have never honestly found her to be like a good actress with a solid performance acting wise, and
Uh,
this one was like a pleasant surprise. And it's a very difficult role. In the first scene, you see her with the baggage,
yeah,
struggling with it, and
exactly,
probably like
exactly.
implies
That
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 she
was
is.
also that was also yeah, that was also like in the story also it implies na
Yeah.
that she has
So
this baggage. Yeah, yeah.
from there to someone who finds this kind of like happiness from such a low point, I think she.
Mm.
And I also like Rajat Kapoor's role, who comes as
Yeah,
Preeti
the uncle.
Zinta's.
Yeah, yeah,
Preeti's
yeah,
Yeah,
uncle.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
he plays that. So it's a very
Mahesh
standard
uncle.
role, right? Where you
Yeah.
have he's like the wingman kind of person telling him,
Mm-hmm.
"Yeah, go," but he doesn't overdo it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He even I think he tells like a beautiful line. Whether I think Amir Khan asks her if she's happy or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He says something on the lines of she's there, but her heart is like with
Yeah, yeah,
you,
yeah,
and he
yeah.
doesn't make it like kind of gooey
It was,
gooey.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was not film. It was very nicely done. Apart from them, like any actors whom you worked you like or didn't like much, sign. Then we'll go to Karthik.
Uh, Particularly didn't like. Yeah, I would say. I mean, yeah, I particularly didn't find Saif Ali Khan's. He was also a bit
Mm-hmm.
of an odd presence in that movie for me. I
Mm-hmm.
liked Akshay Khanna's role.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but Amir also, I felt like I think that role probably didn't need Amir Khan per se. So I
Oh, that.
felt like he was a bit underused in that. Uh,
Okay.
Well, one thing we can say for sure is like if Amir Khan felt that he's being underused,
he would
he
have
would
become
have
the
walked
creative
out of that
director.
film right there and then. So pretty much he was convinced that okay, I am getting a good meaty part, which he always wants. So I think on that front there can't be complaints. How about you, Karthik? What do you
Yeah,
think?
for me, the yeah, again, like acting wise, it's very difficult to beat someone like a Dimple Kapadia or Akshay Khanna. So they did a like fantastic job. For me, they always work. There are some portions where Preeti Zinta's character doesn't have much to do. So those, I mean, it's no discredit to her as an actor, but in those portions, it just felt like it was like dragging a bit, where she's trying to act all coy and shy and not
Mm-hmm.
very accepting of Amir Khan's character. The only couple of people who reminded me very much of that we are watching a Bollywood movie is like, and I think they're not lead characters. Is the guy who's Preeti Zinta's fiance. So he does that
Ayub
typical
Khan.
Ayub Khan. He does
Mm.
that pretty much Bollywood acting of like getting angry and how dare you
He's
and
actually the precursor to the Three Idiots actor, I think, who comes as
Uh, no,
Karina's.
no, dude. That
But
was more of a comical guy,
yeah. So if
and
you
this was
take
a
this
very
guy
brute guy.
and
yeah,
yeah,
this and the his parents, especially the
Yeah,
father, who
yeah.
actually,
I think,
pardon my like French, but he kind of hammed the shit out of that scene. Like, हमें
yeah,
हम वो बोझ समझती है and all that. That was like too many.
yeah,
It almost like he was trying to do an Aloknath over there, but yeah,
yeah.
basically.
Yeah, that was it went into that filmy thing. But then again, it is writing, not the actor himself or
Maybe,
herself.
yeah,
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 yeah, yeah. I think one thing that, in fact, on the contrary, stood out for me was like I feel the casting to be almost perfect in the movie, man. So I can see that you guys are not that much convinced about Seth, but I feel his role was required there, and on top of that, he acted superbly, just like all
yeah.
else in the movie, all six main
Yeah,
characters.
for me, Saif was one of the highlights of the film, definitely.
Yeah,
But what I
yeah,
was saying is that if you see a serious arc, he doesn't
uh,
get that
yeah,
much
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
But what
mm,
people remembered after the film most was all
mm,
Saif's parts because he
yeah,
was
it
the
was also a role
entertainment.
that he was kind of used to, right? I think he has done like a
yeah. Too many side roles in his movie.
few films where he was kind of this.
Yeah.
No, no, Sai, but again,
He was the Jimmy Shergill before Jimmy Shergill started handing over the girl to some other guy. Hey, take her. Yeah.
no, but here, Sai, what happened was this was the film. Like you're saying that he was doing a lot of these roles, but no, he was not actually. So, this was the first time he got that urban kind of role, which he actually is in real life. If you see before that,
Mm,
he was playing the typical hero or the typical
mm.
best friend, but
Mostly
not
Akshay
like
Kumar's
a
sidekick. Mostly
yeah,
Akshay
most
Kumar's sidekick.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that's there. Yeah. So I think that sums up the casting part of the movie. I think, guys, now I think we should move towards music because the phenomenally done music, both the background score as well as the music of the film. One thing that is, I think, not appreciated enough about Dil Chahta Hai is its background scores. The themes they created, they are just they work like magic for me. So let's start with the music first, and then maybe we'll come to background score. And since this is Karthik's forte,
Yeah, let
so
them
Karthik,
start.
over to you.
So yeah, for till now for me, this is probably one of the best soundtracks of Hindi cinema because you already had a Rahman coming in and doing modern music arrangement, production,
Mm,
everything.
mm,
So like you would be thinking, what else can you do? And then these guys come in with a completely different sound because
mm,
for whatever his worth, Rahman either goes too experimental and
mm,
his influences are world music and everything, right? Classic and everything. But gladly for Shankar Ehsaan Loy, out of those three, two are pretty much in the same bracket. They're pretty westernized musicians. One is into
mm,
jazz, the other one is into blues and rock and those kind of things. So throughout the soundtrack, you can hear those elements. But in spite of that, they gave some pretty Indian music as well in the film. Most notably, Jani Q, which
mm,
is the closest
Oh,
to
I
a
love that song.
yeah, it is closest to a Bollywood song because the title track is pretty much like a somewhere between a drum and bass and a rock kind of a song. Tanhai
The
or
title,
yeah,
Rama, I have to ask you this. Doesn't the title track remind you somehow of Alai Pai this?
yeah, but that was later
No,
because
Alai Pai was before, I think.
no, that was later. Right?
97.
No, 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 no,
Huh?
much later, right?
Oh,
Madhavan's much younger. It's much later, but I know why you're saying that is because Dil Chahta's title track is also the focus is on the bass line,
yeah.
right? And the bass line is the tune. So, and there's another interesting story. I don't know how many of you know this. So, they had booked a cottage in Khandala
Yeah.
to do the music, and they were like playing, and they had this bass line, and they were not getting a tune. They had this bass line for the Jane Q situation. So, Shankar Mahadevan just goes into brush his teeth or something, and Ehsan is playing that dun 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 on the thing
Mm,
bass,
mm,
and he says, "Oh, this fits Dil Chahta Hai," and that's how they got the
mm,
thing. Back to like what I was saying. So, yeah, you have the title track. Jani Q, I think, is the only Bollywood kind of a thing. Tanhai easily could have been a very typical cliche Bollywood song,
mm,
but that
mm,
bass
mm.
line again, the way
Yes,
it
yes, yes,
starts,
yes, yes.
that makes it very fresh and very modern. And again, you haven't heard this aggressive kind of a heartbreak song before, and I don't know, like now many people don't like. There are people who don't like Sonu Nigam these days, and I mean, he just sang the. Oh, okay. So he just sang like his heart out. I don't know what anybody says, but he just like freaking nailed the song.
Mm.
Like for me, but the pick of the album is of course "Kaisi Hai Ye Rut."
Mm,
Yeah, because first of all, the Hindi audience had not heard Srinivas's voice
mm,
that much, maybe in
mm.
some dubbing A.R. Rahman song. So he absolutely nailed it. But for me, the USP of that song is the lyrics,
Writing, exactly. I
writing.
was also coming to that. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, because
yeah.
I just realized this a couple of days ago when I was just thinking about the film, is that they foreshadow that entire story, that entire
Mm,
line in that song. So if you see,
mm,
initially I didn't understand why is he saying, Nadi hai, milne chali hai, sagar ko, panchi
mm,
and all that. And every antra he finishes with the line, प्यार का ही है सारा कारवां. So why is he
mm,
saying कि ये भी प्यार है, वो भी प्यार है? Because
mm.
at that point he's basically trying to convince himself that my
Absolutely.
attraction to this older woman is
Exactly,
not
exactly.
that
Yeah,
bad. Of course, everything
yeah,
is love,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
So for me, that is the kind of pick. And of course, the
yeah.
biggest chart buster was "Koi Kahe,"
Mm,
but like now when I look back at the album, that
yeah, yeah.
somehow is
That is the
the
weakest song. Yeah, yeah,
weakest for me because
yeah, yeah,
you're not happy all the time, but you are like
yeah,
thoughtful more.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. Like for me, the song that I still listen to going back is the Dil Chahta Hai reprise version.
right,
That is, dude, that is phenomenally done. And like one more thing, I just noticed. I don't know how much true that is, but have you noticed, Karthik, that when Javed Akhtar is writing for his own kids' movies, like be it Zoya or Farhan, he goes very experimental with the Hindi he uses in his songs.
right, right,
So usually, like most other lyrics writers, it would be like Urdu or Hindustani per se.
right.
And like I can't imagine, dude. Like in recent years, there would be a word like Ritu in a song. Although it should be Rutu,
Ritu,
but that's a different debate. But uh, like Chandni Jharne, like okay, these are still not
even the
at least
Rutu
Hindi.
is Ruth is the Urduized version of Rutu, but that is
Okay,
yeah. But still, yeah, yeah, you're right. He
I
can write
still
good
see like a
Hindi.
lot more Hindi being used. Like
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, 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 definitely.
Yeah, so that
And
that is something, yeah, very nuanced and very fresh take on writing. I see it that way. Yeah,
I always feel that he gets a lot of freedom from his kids.
yeah.
Though they say that we don't, but
Mm,
his songs for his kids are probably in the last 15, 20 years some of the best work that he has done. And
right.
again, any work that he has done with Shankar Ahsan Loy is also like even
Yeah,
for
man.
some Karan Johar films, it's pretty
Yeah.
pretty good,
Actually,
pretty
even
solid.
Dil Dhadakne though had like some very nice songs.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And I think he writes very simple for his own kids. So there's this song na in Dil Dhadakne Do Pehli Baar Tumko Jab Maine Dekha Tha.
right,
It is such simple writing. Like
right.
no artistry
Yeah,
like
yeah,
being thrust upon you in terms of the lyrics of the song, but then it makes sense and it feels good. Like very
yeah.
keep or that song Ude Khwabo Ke Parinde, like there are ample examples.
That yeah.
We were just talking about like certain other songs like which would be like Urdu in your face. Like we were just talking about that Falak Tak Chal Saath Mere, right, Karthik?
Yeah.
like those sort of songs. And here we have like the same emotions being conveyed in a very simple language that feels very refreshing, like a rare thing these days. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
I think this movie, like you can't say like a Gangs of Wasseypur had some real impact on me, right? That's something for a filmy universe, and then there's real life. But this movie had like moments which could be like very relatable to you in your own life,
Yeah.
or without much exaggeration, maybe people might have felt certain impact on their own life about the movie. So, do you have any such observations or memories or something like that? Let's go with Sai first.
So one thing for me is I think this definitely kind of shunned that older cinematic verse where you had this lover pining for this other person
Mm,
kind of thing and
Yeah.
singing these hardcore romantic songs and something
Around
like
the
Veer Zara, for instance.
yeah.
mm,
So this gave this transfer, which I think definitely people like Imtiaz Ali
Right.
took a leaf out of this and went on to make like the classics that he has made now.
mm,
And it also like gave this thing of uh, you kind of be cool on screen, right? I think it really brought. So this is something that you had, Saurabh, you had mentioned earlier, right? Like just a bunch of friends hanging out. So the
mm,
sense of hanging out is never captured that well in movies typically. It's mostly
yeah.
like you're straining to do
Yeah.
something kind of.
Mm, mm,
So this just being, I think, was Dil
mm,
Chahta Hai really
Absolutely.
paved the way for.
right, right.
Absolutely.
How about what do you
For
think,
me,
Karthik?
the impact, yes, that is the impact. Right. So basically, the coolest film of its times,
Mm,
right?
mm,
So
mm,
people wanting to be cool, which is, I mean,
mm,
debatable. Are you want to be,
mm,
or really are you that? But
mm,
for me, yeah, the biggest impact was like we joked sometime before that Goa tourism, right? People wanted to
mm,
go on these trips with their friends and all that, and
mm,
even till today, that's the curse, right? Whenever people
mm,
plan trips in India, it's usually groups of three and they want to go to Goa. So the film has
mm,
that kind of a long lasting impact. I'm a bit ashamed here to say that I actually ended up doing something of that sort, but it was not for this film. But of course, when you do that kind of a thing, you have to think of this particular film. So I think the lasting impact was, yeah, hanging out. I want Saurabh to actually talk about this. There is a moment in the film where they just hang out, or at least one of them thinks they hang out. So you want to talk
uh,
about that? For me, that
yeah.
is one of the biggest takeaways from the film.
Well, so you're talking about the scene where Amir Khan is driving and he looks
Right.
across. Dude,
Yeah. Yeah.
for me, that is the most beautiful scene of the entire movie. In fact, as a matter of fact, I do have a personal story about that one, which is so when I was in my college, in my undergrads, during final years, I wanted to make a college video, which used to be a thing back then, right? And so I worked upon it. I went to my HOD for funding and bullshit, and like it never happened. So but I had this idea very like nicely fleshed out in my own head how the video would start. And the start I thought about the video would be like absolute ripoff from Dil Chahta Hai, where one fine day some actor or someone from our batch, he'll be driving past our college, and he'll stop right in front of the college. He'll look towards the college gate, and he would find himself hanging out with his friends there, and then he'll come back to reality, and that's where the college video will start, and that's from where I'll take it into like flashback and all that, blah blah blah. Dude, that is so beautiful scene, and that still happens to this day. Like I have a mug that someone gave it to me, like a friend gave it to me during undergrads and everything. I used to keep that in my office. I don't have it with me here now. And like every now and then, while working in the office, and you get tired and you just look around the mug, and you get a glimpse of memories coming back at you, right? That's
Yeah.
that was the impact of that scene. And it the movie had so many such scenes. Also, like you talked about you making that Goa trip, right, Karthik? Dude, I went one step further. I not only did that, I shot that exact picture and put
Okay.
it on my Facebook as my cover photo. It's still there, where the three of them are like, one is here, one is here, and one is here on that fort. And I legit put that as a cover photo on my Facebook profile, putting the caption, "या तो ये दोस्ती गहरी है या ये photo 3D है." Could you be any more filmy than that? But
Yeah.
yeah, and like
I
unabashed,
recently
like
I recently
yeah.
heard that in a very funny situation as well. There was this trailer for a Marathi web series where they use
Mm-hmm.
this exact thing, and there's this
Mm-hmm.
guy who, Sai, I don't know if you understand this, but he says this guy comes into the other guy's home, and then there's a photo. So he said, "Kaun hai?" So this guy says, "Ya to." For dosti gehri hai या photo 3D है. So the other guy says, "Hey, काय?" And he says, दिल चाहता है नाही बघितलंय मी तुला घरात कसं काय घेतलं सो इट्स
अरे
लाईक
बाप रे.
हाऊ डिड आय मेक यू माय फ्रेंड अँड bring you home if you haven't seen Dil Chahta Hai. So I think that is the impact of the film that even like 20 years later people are referencing it in other films and series
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
yeah.
So, what do you guys think about like this is a personal impact, right? Personal impact of the film on our lives and as people. What do you think changed in Hindi cinema after Dil Chahta? Because I see a lot of things. What do you
Mm.
guys see? Sai, if you want to go, like, do you see the effect trickle down, or rather like a big change after Dil Chahta?
So as I mentioned, I think the whole way they were portraying rich people, they were portraying youngsters, they were portraying
Yeah,
romances. I think all these things they changed considerably after the.
yeah,
I mean, you have people like Aditya Chopra making Befikre, so that really shows how
right,
the kind
right,
of effect that
right. If you
and
think
even Karan Johar making Ye Dil Hai Mushkil. So you wouldn't have believed. I mean, 10 years before, you wouldn't have believed these filmmakers to take up this charting these new territories as such. So
like
in that sense, I
slightly
think it's
progressive and
yeah.
yeah. Saurabh, do you think?
Yeah, and yeah, like, dude, I think it is indeed one of those movies which changed the cinema forever. Like, it was that jerk that Indian cinema needed. That what are we doing? And we can make better films, and we can make cooler films, and those films can work. I think it was that kind of a reality check, because even the movies that were considered cool for those times would be like the Dharma Productions movies, where people are looking cool, but the script itself is not, like, you see what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
On the other hand, here it was like, so even friends, there was a type of friendship portrayed in shown in Dil Chahta Hai. And I think in the same year, I think there was RSTDM as well.
right.
Was it the same year? Almost the same year, I think.
Similar. So
2001,
yeah, a couple of
beginner
years
year or
here
something,
and
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And like, the friendship showed there was good for that time, but
For
no
now,
way, like,
yeah.
for now, right?
Uh,
And
Going
yeah.
off of what you're saying, do you think Dil Chahta Hai, I'm just elaborating on it. Do you think it still stands the test of time? As in, it's still cool because, like you said, in back and like Sai said, before this, cool was those Dharma films, right? For
Mm,
example, if you take Kuch Kuch Hota and stuff like that,
mm,
or
mm, mm,
K3G, you had
mm.
stuff where even the characters are wanna be cool. They're not
Yeah,
really
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
Rahul, take a chill pill, and all that stuff is
Absolutely,
not gonna work.
absolutely, yeah.
And
Regressive at heart,
cheater,
yeah.
and all that. But
In the
just
pretense of cool, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I
Mm.
think in one of those films, Shah Rukh Khan actually has a cool.
Dude, in Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, he legit had to have a locket which said cool, because
Yeah,
you know what? It doesn't. I have to say that I'm cool, yeah,
yeah, and I have to showcase it.
yeah,
Dil
yeah.
Chahta Hai never needed.
Yeah, so like, I think the coolness came also from the way, the connections between the folks, right? The emotions they shared. For me, even during that very filmy scene where Akash goes and proposes Preeti in front, in her own wedding, right? Dude, so he looks back, and just Saif Ali Khan does nothing, no machismo, nothing. He just comes and stands behind him.
Right,
And I have, in my personal life, been through this emotion so many times, that when I would feel that I'm down and out, and any of my friend would be like, "Hey, I am there. Like, we'll deal with this." And that is that emotion which would never go out of vogue, no matter what year we are living in, right? And that is an emotion which would always be cool. There are friends like whom you would call and like, hey, ye ho gaya, wo ho gaya, wo ho gaya, and they'll give you the most basic advice that perhaps you just wanted to listen to, and things from there would be like, oh wow, I didn't think of it that way. So I think those are the sort of things that work magically in Dil Chahta Hai.
Okay, so like we are almost coming to an end of this. So I just wanted to ask you guys, like, if there's something that didn't work for you in the film, uh, feel free to like go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is a movie for which I will definitely take a pass. There are many things that people might consider like masala per se, but then nothing is perfect. And also consider the fact that this was 2001 and Dil Chahta Hai was the first movie of that sort.
Right,
So it
right.
was starting a precedent. So because of that, for me, like, not even complaints about the masala part of it, and for me, it's a perfect movie.
Okay.
I'm sure Sai. Yeah.
Sai, you
Yeah,
already
I
said a couple
mean,
of things about Saif Ali Khan. Do you have anything else? Like, for example, do you think there's no like technical kind of excellence per se actually kind of needed for the film? I'm talking in terms of like cinematography or editing. It's a very
so
plain relationship story, right?
yeah, I mean, in terms of direction, if you see, actually, this Cassie Harewood song is picturized very well. If you think
Yeah.
about it, because in some sense, he
Mhm.
has this image of her,
A
and
river
when you
and
guys
yeah, yeah.
explain the lyrics, it made much more sense to me because the song is all about how he sees her, kind of,
And love in many forms and
yeah, dynamic. So that is interesting. But Farhan Akhtar, again, I have, so Zoya is probably like a much more better filmmaker per se in my books, because you see Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara, right? After Hrithik Roshan comes out of that,
water,
the so
scuba
scuba
diving.
diving, you
Mhm.
see like such naked emotions on his face.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah,
Beautiful.
in that
Yeah.
sense, Farhan has been, he's very competent. He's a solid director, but
Mm.
Yeah, and just because you mentioned that scene, she would not even use background score in those kind of scenes. She would just
yeah,
let it play, and
dude,
maybe yeah,
she's like, I would
You need
call her
to.
like a born filmmaker of sorts. There's probably like stuff for another discussion, but
yeah,
like you see Luck by Chance, you see some scenes. I mean, you know that this is a filmmaker at work. I mean,
I have to watch that movie, man. I've heard so much about Luck by Chance. I really have to watch that movie.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great film. Maybe we can
Mm,
do that as a
mm.
discussion here sometime. So yeah, for me, the discussion is pretty much complete. If you guys wanted to say anything else about the film, like
Yeah.
final thoughts or closing thoughts,
Yeah.
and then just
So,
close it.
I'll have just one final thought about it. We talked enough about the coolness of Dil Chahta Hai today, right? Uh, I think I'll just briefly go into one fine detail of it, which signified that the movie is cool. So there is this again a very tried and tested filmy scene where Akash and Shalini are hanging out. Akash gets into the train leaves, and Shalini is stranded in the middle of the night alone at that station. Okay. By the time Akash comes back, there is some guy who seems to be somewhat bothering her, right? Now, in a very Bollywood-esque movie, the typical scene would have been the guy would pick on a fight, punch him down, and be a hero in front of the in the eyes of the girl, right? And this is what you are not like you
Getting.
are not given in this movie. And he deals with it such charm, dude, and such comic finesse. I don't know. He goes on and hugs the guy and asks him, "Was she bothering you? You okay, Mike? You okay?"
Yeah.
And the guy thinks he's a crazy maniac. He does this gesture and just walks away. I think that's what was not done before Dil Chahta Hai, and that's what makes Dil Chahta Hai cool for me.
So that's it for that video. If you like this video, please leave a like. Check out other stuff on my channel. I know this is a film related video, but mostly I do music related stuff. So if you like any of that, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you want to tell me anything at all, good, bad, ugly, put that in the comment section down below. If you want to chat with me, you could always DM me on Instagram. You can find the handle in the description as well. With that being said, I'll take your leave. Be safe, take care of yourselves, and we'll all see you in another video. Bye.